I woke to the crying of the wind. Just barely coming to my senses, I found myself overwhelmed by the scent of seawater, the unsettling rocking of the waves, and the howling of things I cannot fathom to put into words. I had left the comfort of my dreams, only to enter into the scene of a nightmare. I can't say for certain how or why it happened, but I found myself to be drifting through a vicious thunderstorm in the middle of the sea. I had no recollection of how such a bizarre string of events had transpired. Aboard a ghastly ship completely devoid of other people, I was tossed side to side by the thrashing waves. I held in the panic as best as I could, fear kicking my adrenaline into action. I held on for dear life, my fingers digging deep into the wooden boards until my fingers bled from the sting of splinters. At this moment, I could truly say for certain, the sea had never been my friend. Since the days of my childhood, the ocean has terrified me. It wasn't the sea itself that filled me with a nauseating fear. It was the idea of what was hiding deep beneath the water's surface. The ocean in its entirety has yet to be explored. Some have even speculated that the world's greatest mysteries are lurking in its depths. Uncertainty is what scared me more than anything, and the ocean was full of uncertainty. Powerless to stop the ship, and too afraid to jump overboard and attempt to find land, I was left with little options. I decided to let nature take its course, and I prayed for the chance that soon I would hit land. Part of me knew fate would never be so kind. I was doomed to a slow death from the moment I set sail. For whatever reason that might be, I couldn't begin to understand. I avoided the sea like a plague. I wouldn't dare set sail on my own accord, not for all the riches in the world. It was that conclusion that stripped away my hopes of returning to safety. Whatever it was that convinced me to depart from the comfort of the land, it must have been far more terrifying than even the ocean itself. So terrifying that it managed to completely erase my mind of the events. The ocean has always been my greatest fear. To think something from the shores of my homeland could frighten me to the point that I felt the sea was the only safe place left in the world. The thought of it put me on the verge of vomiting. I planted my face into the deck of the boat, attempting to erase the vision of such unsettling images. The longer I remained in this position, the softer the waves became. The vicious storm that rattled the earth mere moments ago slowly faded behind me, and the gentle waves carried me to sleep. I awoke once more to the sound of howling. The storm had ceased, and the waves grew silent, yet the howling still remained. It was that moment I had realized the boat had stopped moving altogether. The entire world stood still, frozen in time. The piercing howls were maddening. Gathering up what little courage I had, I finally mustered the strength to stand. I had hoped to be greeted with the sight of land, yet all I saw was an oasis of darkness. The water was dyed black, the sky glowing a hideous vermilion. I was still stranded in the center of the ocean, not a glimmer of land in sight. Consumed by the dread surrounding me, I walked steadily to the edge of the boat, peeking over the ledge. My eyes couldn't pierce the murky darkness. Mesmerized by the sea of black, I searched the dark waters for my reflection. I found nothing. Everything before me was empty. The sea was empty. The skies were empty. My soul was empty. Lost in a bout of despair, I came back to my bearings when the water began to ripple and bubble. Once again, I was forced to bear that awful symphony of monstrous howls. Only this time, I could make out where the howls were coming from. They were coming from the ocean itself. A crooked, sludge-drenched hand lunged at my face, uttering a gut-wrenching howl as it attempted to devour me whole. I fell on my backside, my hand clutching at my breast. Though the waves remained silent, the boat began to rock once more. The abominations lurking from deep below the sea had risen to the surface, and they were attempting to drown me. Circling around the boat like a swarm of sharks, a whirlpool began to form below me. No wonder I couldn't find land. The world had sunken below the ocean, and the beasts of ancient times had returned to claim the home that rightfully belonged to them. I always knew my fear of the sea would one day prove to be rational. If only I could have figured out why before it was too late. Now there was no one left to hear my pleas, to hear my warnings of unnameable things that have swam right under our noses for centuries. I was the last man on earth, and the Dead Sea would make sure that I would be the last one to ever sail across its haunted waters.